Good morning and welcome to Saturday Cinema. We're so glad you're here and you joined us today. Today I have Linda again. Yay! Linda's here.
Yay!
We're going to talk about a really fun movie, Groundhog Day. Linda, have you seen it?
I have seen it. I love it.
It's an amazing movie. Now, this movie has been around for you folks that are out there for a long time. So if you have not already seen it, spoiler alert, we're going to tell you a lot about the things that happen, but it is a fun movie. And it has, of course, it's fun because it has Bill Murray in it, one of the most slapstickish fun guys there is. So Bill Murray plays this weatherman called Phil Connors, and he gets sent um, on this newscast that he doesn't want to go to because it's covering Groundhog's Day. And the groundhog's name is Phil. So it's Phil and Phil. So Phil goes to watch the groundhog Phil, and this is very beneath him. So he's not happy about it. He's very sarcastic. And his character starts out very narcissistic. I mean, just everything is bad. And why do I want to do this? And so he goes to this little B&B breakfast because he wasn't going to stay the night. He was just going to cover it and leave. But there's this freak snowstorm that comes in. So he has to spend the night. So then he's really sarcastic to the owner because she's like, well, will you be checking out tomorrow? And he goes, well, chances are 100% I'll be checking out tomorrow, because he knows he's not staying. And, this is just not what he wants to do with his life. So he wakes up the next morning and the radio's playing the same song, which is a Sonny and Cher song, which is fun. I've Got You, Babe. And then it says it's the same day, February 2nd. And he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean it's the same day? And he goes out into the world and the same people approach him in the same way. He steps in the same puddle. The same guy from high school comes up and says, hey, I can sell you insurance. And his producer, which is of course a very beautiful young lady, and she's like, oh god, he's such a narcissist, but I have to deal with him, right? So she's trying to keep him, fend him off and everything else, because he's always attracted to every woman, right? And he goes through this whole same day and ends in a freak snowstorm where he can't leave again, and he's like, what is going on? So these repetitions start happening over and over again. And when I was reading to get the information, I didn't really notice at first, but someone counted that at least 38 repetitions of the same day, each day a little bit different, because he knows something's coming, right? But then he goes through this whole process of um, things like, well, if it's just going to live the same day for the rest of his life, he gorges himself on all kinds of crazy foods. And the producer's like, aren't you worried about your cholesterol? And he's shoving stuff in his mouth. And I mean, it's just funny, just very slapstickish funny. Um, he decides that he's going to not step in the puddle of water, so he moves around that. And then the guy that comes up to sell insurance, as soon as he walks up and introduces himself, in one piece, he punches him because he's just like, he's tired of hearing the same thing, going over and over again. So repetition after repetition, then he figures, I mean, he figures he can live forever, so he steps in front of a truck, and then the day starts over again. One day he does this where he gets in the bathtub. He's done. He just says, I can't live like this over and over, the same monotonous day, because he's such a narcissist. So he's going to electrocute himself, and guess what? The day starts over again through this whole thing. And then he starts thinking, well, what if I make little changes? So he starts making little changes. The first one does, he's flicking cards. So someone says, well, you're really good at flicking cards. And he's just like, well, when you practice 6 hours a day for how many days, you'll be good at anything. But then he starts realizing that he's practicing something different. And so he does things like he learns to play the piano. He learns French. So he's taking French lessons over and over again. And these repetitions are going over and over again. And so he figures that the equation changes because once he decides he's going to change it. So then he starts asking the producer personal questions. And then he starts the next day using those, like saying things about, back to her that she might connect with. Because at first it's kind of a game to him, but then he starts actually being connected to this lady and thinking, wow, she's really pretty cool. Well, one day he even goes as far as to tell her that he's God. And she's like, "What do you mean you're God?" He goes, "No, I'm not the God. I'm just God. You know, I can't die. I'm going to live forever in this same thing, in this same day." So even though he um, does this repetitions, he decides to change his life by changing what he does. And eventually, after he realizes what he needs to change personal, his personal growth, and we all know here at Unity, especially about personal growth, right? All the ripple effects that happen once you start changing your life. So not only is he changing his life, he's changing other people's life. The only really kind of sad part is there and it comes to an understanding of that too, is there's a homeless man in the show, and at the end of every day he dies, and Phil wants to prevent him from dying. He figures whatever he does, he can prevent that man from dying. And in the end, he really can't. And the nurse says, sometimes you just can't. Some people are just meant to die, you know? So it's like there's some things that he could affect and some things that he couldn't. And the ones that he could was himself. So he earns his way out. And one day he wakes up and it's the next day. And he's so excited because he's like, here I am in the next day. So that's my little snippet on it. So tell me what you're thinking as I'm talking here.
I think you did a great job of covering the movie, Becky. A couple of things I would add. His producer is played by Andy McDowell,
Mhm.
and I love her.
Yes.
I don't think she gets the recognition that she deserves. I'll watch a movie just because she's in it. I think she's amazing, and she plays this off real well. The movie Groundhog Day actually changed our culture. It used to be Groundhog Day was about this groundhog. Do you see the shadow? No shadow. And now it's about doing the same thing over and over again. I think it has mass appeal because each and every one of us has had something happen and thought, wow, I would do that differently. If I got a different chance, I would have started with a different saying. I wouldn't have brought this up, whatever. And so there's a little part of us that I think really would love an opportunity. In this movie, we watch Bill Murray's character start off taking advantage of everything he can take advantage of in the first few days when he realizes that he gets to do the day over and over again. He takes what he wants, he goes where he wants, like you said, he gorges on all his favorite foods and realizes that there's no satisfaction in that. But he lived his whole life in what we call sense consciousness.
Mhm.
Me, more, more, more. And he starts to realize that there's no joy in that. You know, you can have everything in the world and still be empty. And then he comes to a point where he says, you can't make me live this day again. I will defeat you. I relate to that more than I should. And he decides he's going to just end it by ending himself. And that doesn't end it. He keeps getting brought back just faster. So he puts himself through these horrible deaths and has to go back. But this movie also illustrates a concept of what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if you knew you could succeed? So he learns to play the piano, he learns to speak a different language, and he starts learning about another person, mainly as a got you know, I will make you date me kind of thing. But when he starts learning about who she is, he starts wanting to be a man worthy of being with a woman who is like she is. I think that's so powerful. And he starts, instead of doing self centered me things, reaching out and doing little tiny things for people all over the place. He learns the name of the waitress at the diner and the story that she's going through. it's funny. The movie is just funny, but it's also so touching and so enriching and such a wonderful explanation of developing consciousness, right? We
Mhm.
go from self-centered sense consciousness, the gimme, want, whatever outside of me can make me happy, to a more God-centered consciousness. I can be happy because that's my natural state. I think it's a beautiful movie, and I'm so glad that you brought this one up because it is old, and you hear it all the time. Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day. Instead of deja vu, we say it's Groundhog Day. But I hadn't really gone through the movie until you brought it up. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it. And I completely agree with everything you said. I mean, it just makes sense. I will add one thing. I feel like a lot of it is that living in the now, being being present to what's going on. I mean, because I feel like his whole day was at first when he was this huge narcissist, it's just like, oh God, he was tolerating the day. You know, I mean, oh God, I have to do this and I have to do that. And he's playing for this whole, I got to tolerate what they're putting me through. And when we change that to, I am able to make a difference in the world. I'm not only my world, and that's where it starts. As we know, as true students, it starts in our own world, right? But just by making those little changes, learning somebody's name, saying hello to somebody, passing somebody $1 on the street, being complimentary. My oldest granddaughter is amazing about this. If she notices someone, especially she feels like that they're in a bad way or whatever, she will pick something about them and she'll say, you know what? I love your beautiful eyes. And you should see their face light up. I mean, she's just such a gift in doing this. And it makes a difference in people's worlds, And so living in the present, living in the moment and being good with that. And when you were talking about the sense consciousness, what I heard was like, much like a child, when you're born, it's like all about what can I get? What can I get? What can I stick in my mouth? And then as we grow, by the time we're old and aged and we're ready to transition out of this life, we're like, you know what? That doesn't matter. That none of that matters anymore. What matters is that we feel good together, that we love each other, that you know that I love you. And this was a huge one for me. Looking at this metaphysically made even a huge difference just in the movie, even though the movie was wonderful before that thought. You know what I mean? So that's what I've got for it. Have you got anything else?
Just that he dropped his agenda. This is the third year in a row he got the short straw and had to fly out and do this horrible interview about what he calls a city rat or something. And his whole agenda was to get out, to do as horrible a job as possible so they wouldn't make him do it again and just get out. And when he dropped that agenda, like you said, he was in the now. And again, I think we're back at the third principle,
Yes.
Unity's third principles. Our thoughts create our reality. And how often do we go, hopefully never, but how often do we go into a situation and have an agenda? I'll go in, I'll get this, and I'll get out, instead of going in and seeing who's in there and enjoying the experience. We limit our experience when we go in with an agenda, and it's a powerful movie.
I completely agree. So thank you for joining us today, guys. If you have not seen this movie, because it's old, find it because it is funny. And when you look at it from a metaphysical lens, it's amazing. So thank you for joining us here today. And we hope to see you again tomorrow for something else. So have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
All right, let me stop the recording as soon as I can get my, there we go, my thing back.